Welcome into another episode. I'm Levi.
Jacoby.
And Joe.
This is the Thought Vessel Show. Let's jump right in.
So, have you ever been jealous of your friends' new toys?
Always.
All the time.
Yeah. Okay. So what was like a specific time between the two of you?
So here I was minding my own business.
Barbecue sauce on your titties.
Indeed. And then my friend rolled up with his new Optimus Prime Transformer.
Optimus Prime?
Optimus Prime,
Not Megatron?
not Megatron.
Wow, we're really going back. When I was thinking toys, I was thinking like new car, new cell phone.
This was less than a year ago.
You know what? I stand corrected. Let me just hold on. Let me for this visual podcast, just take my foot right into my mouth.
So normally when you think of Transformers, you're thinking the nice little plastic whatever. This was a very nice, sleek, $400, very well put together Optimus Prime Transformer.
Damn, $400.
This was a very wonderful toy, and I was so jealous.
Yeah, no, I would be jealous about that one.
Like, everyone's like, oh yeah, Transformer, whatever. You don't understand. This was like a Transformer's dream.
Absolutely. I think as humans, we have a tendency to get jealous when everyone gets that new next biggest thing. I know my brother is a huge tech nerd in the sense that he always wants the newest and nicest things. He always wants to have like the home theater and stuff like that. It can be jealous to see some of the setups because that isn't really my style, but it's always kind of fun to see all what the new tech stuff is coming out. So you can be jealous on that kind of stuff. Absolutely.
Yeah, mine is always experiences like, oh, you got to go to Europe. Because a lot of people in our age group is like going outside of the country and traveling at this point, and I'm always jealous of them.
I feel that's becoming more common. What do you guys think about like, if you're going to have a birthday present, would you prefer like to get tickets to a concert or like a thing?
I am currently more impendent on the thing. I love experiences. I love spending time with people and going to stuff more than anything. But it's really hard for me to get those kinds of things because things like my birthday, it's a great idea until you realize I'm right next to Christmas.
Yeah, I know those feels. I'm after Christmas, but
Same.
like, man, crazy.
Yeah, whenever I was a kid, I really prioritized experiences and things. So instead of asking for like an Xbox or something for Christmas, I would usually ask like my dad to buy tickets to like a Cincinnati Bengals football game or something. I always liked going and doing something.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of experiencing those kind of things, especially like sporting events or concerts or whatever it might be.
I was never one to ask for a lot of things or experiences, but part of that is I spend time with my family very sparingly. I spend a lot of time away from their home in particular. So just being there and they'll be like, what do you want for Christmas? To be here. Presence is present enough.
That is fair. Speaking of new toys, we're going to get right into it. Our first topic of the day, and am I the arch enemy? Joe.
Am I the arch enemy for asking my friend not to play the exciting new rare they just pulled? Sorry in advance for my grammatical errors. English is not my first language. My playgroup is fairly new to Magic, so we don't have lots of cards. We play with literal precons, so we rarely have the opportunity to add exciting new cards. I'm the one who spends more money on the game, so I have more cards. Because of that, I improved my original deck, Undead Unleash, to a point that it was too powerful for the table. I'm also the most experienced, so that's a factor. Man, bearing the weight of greatness, this guy.
We'll get to that. Keep going.
I ended up building Izuri Stalker of Spheres deck with the cards that I had just hanging around, which was arguably far weaker than any of my friends' decks, but I was fine with it. Or at least I was until one of them pulled a Vorinclex Monstrous Raider. They were obviously so excited that they wanted to put it in their deck. I was afraid that it would literally shut down my entire deck when played, and I tried to tell them, but with the support of all the others, they insisted that it wasn't that bad and that it was only 1 out of the 99. My deck has little to no removal, and all of it is some kind of bite/fight spell, so removing it wasn't really an option. I told them that I would have to play with the zombies, but they complained and said that I was being unfair. I planned to power down my original deck to be able to play it safely, but we had several games before I even had time to do it. I ended up playing with a Zuri deck, and luckily Vorinclex showed up only once and didn't stay for much, but it still did some damage. The worst part of it all is that Vorinclex didn't even make any sense in that player's deck. since it was the Dragon's precon, Draconic Destructions, and there were like no cards with counter mechanics. I ended up building other decks and it didn't really impact me that much, but still I think they didn't take into account my play experience. Am I the archenemy?
All right, before we get into any context here, I think it's important that we read off what each of those cards do. So I'll start with Azuri, Stalker of Spheres. So this is the deck that he was making around. It says, when Azuri Stalker of Spheres enters the battlefield, you may pay 3 colorless mana. If you do, proliferate twice. Proliferate says anytime anything has a counter on it, you can put an additional counter on that thing. Whenever you proliferate, draw a card. So that was the idea of his commander. More than likely, it's going to be a lot of plus and plus and counter synergies. It's in Simic, so it's that green-blue strategy. Vorinclex is 4 green, is a legendary creature, Phyrexian Praetor, trample haste. If you would put 1 or more counters on a permanent or player, put twice that many of each of those kind onto that permanent or player instead. If an opponent would put 1 or more counters on a permanent or player, they put half that many of each of those kinds of the counters on that permanent or that player instead, rounded down. And of course, it's a 6/6 with that trample and haste. So the main issue that we're seeing here is that the proliferate is getting flat out negated by the Vorinclex Monstrous Raider, because not being able to put that additional counter because it's getting halved and moved down effectively negates the deck.
So one of the important things is that a lot of the nice little decks that we've encountered within this Reddit post is, hey, I'm going to be like super powerful or not powerful at all and not run good removal. Like, bites and fights are perfectly fine if that's what you want to go for, but like, you're in the colors for pretty decent removal and cheaply too.
I have a slurry of problems with this gentleman's. First off, the idea that you don't have enough removal. Second off, the idea that it counters your entire deck. Third off, that you don't anticipate anything past a single creature stopping you. So yeah, I'll let everyone else get their insights in real quick first.
Okay. So for me, he's talking and kind of boasting about being the person who spends the most money in the game and having the most experience. And then when you get to a point, like, it's almost your responsibility as a commander player that if you have a mechanic or something you're trying to build around, you need to know what's out there that could potentially stop you. And it's not the other player's responsibility to handpick and tailor their decks to make sure that you can do what you want to do. People are going to run Vorinclex. It's a 6/6 trample haste. Does it make sense to go in the Dragon deck? Probably not. But it's his deck. He's learning how to play. He's experiencing these things. We've all probably put in a card into a deck that we just wanted to try out and then maybe just pulled it out after a game or two. But that's part of the learning experience.
It going into the Dragon deck is actually a little bit weird. Full stop. Outside of that being the only quibble, my dude, my guy, if you are so quote unquote experienced in Magic, build the deck to help you. We even had that experience when, like, all 3 of us wanted to go into a challenge and try to play Planeswalkers decks against each other. Mm-hmm. And Jacob was pretty much the only one running a green build with Carthalion.
Yep.
Which means that in access to Planeswalkers, Vorinclex is one of the top spells that's going into that deck to help.
Oh, absolutely.
Now, that absolutely hoses everybody else who was doing the Planeswalkers deck, because a lot of our Planeswalkers decks were sans green. Because I know at the time I was running Narset, the nice little one that gets 4 spells off the top for free when attacks. And, instead, I initially had that same reaction and just like, I really need to make that rule because that would literally hose everybody else's deck. But we came to the consensus that I could just run, what's that mirror?
Mirror?
MYR?
No, MIRROR. Mirror.
Mirror box?
No, it's the one that is an artifact that you pay to and it turns itself into something.
Mirage Mirror.
Mirage Mirror. That's what I was thinking of. Literally running Mirage Mirror to have a quote-unquote Vorinclex in our decks. And that was certainly a working solution, especially because, like, with the Narset, it at least still is cast with Narset.
Yeah, and at the same time, this creature, it's big, it hits hard, doesn't have any protection on it, really. You can always just kind of try to flash something in to block it and kill it. You're in Simic, so Rabbit Hybridization, Hongify, Reality Shift, Beast Within, any of the bounce spells, any of the counter spells. There's a lot of things you can do. And I understand that, some people don't want to be in certain metas which they have to play removal, but you have to play some removal.
Yeah, this is literally the guy where people keep saying the toxic phrase of just run more removal. This guy is the main reason why they keep saying that.
Yeah. So, on my list of issues, issue number 1. If you are the most experienced player at this table, you have a duty, if these are your friends, to help them experience everything in Magic. If they are going to run things you don't like, that is your opportunity to either grow as a player or to teach this new player, like, this is great against my type of deck. Here is why. I built a deck around this thing you are countering, and you use that to teach them. This is a great card. Here is why. You don't just tell them, don't play it because it counters me, first off. Second off, already hit on the removal. You have plenty. Failing to adapt as a player to something that exists and going, no, don't play it because it stops me from playing the game. And if you don't do this, I have to play my mean deck. Like, no, that's full stop. No pass go. That is just a bad line of thinking.
It almost feels like, in a way, like I kind of want to call it like Rule Zero bullying, in a way that it's something that you don't necessarily like. So instead of trying to tech or prepare for that to be an issue in the future, you're just trying to convince them not to run it in the first place. And we're not talking about like a stacks or a super combo deck. We're talking about one card in their 99 with, if it's a 5-color dragon deck, it probably doesn't have a lot of ways to tutor it out.
Duly noted, the Draconic Destructions deck is the green-red one, isn't it?
Oh, that might be the green-red one from the first D&D set.
It is I believe it is the Atarka deck.
Oh wait, that's the new one from where they did the $20 pre-cons.
You're
with
right. That's
no
right.
like new cards.
Okay,
in it.
while we're here, I'm just gonna look that up.
We are professionals. Do not try this at home.
Oh, we're probably gonna be editing this in post a little bit.
Nah, keeping it in.
I mean, we should because
I mean, credibility.
not every little bit thing. But listen, we make mistakes. We are human like everybody else.
Yes. However, I will, in fact, take out a lot of my likes and ums, just like I take out some of your likes and ums.
I guess, actually.
Yeah, so it's the Gruul deck that gives the double strike to all the dragons running with the Tarka. So having that being the case, you probably don't have a lot of ways to tutor up that specific creature in the deck. So the odds of that actually coming up for you is not extremely likely.
Yeah. Plus, and this is just the hidden factors that didn't get covered in the Reddit post. We don't know how those precons may have been upgraded or changed outside of just adding the one card. So we don't know if there were any kind of like creature tutors in the deck to like get any kind of creature, or was it specifically for a dragon? We don't know. We can only go off of what we do know, which is that it was one card put into a precon that we do not believe was upgraded.
And a final note before deciding to move on to a different part of this topic that I'm going to start. It is not anyone's job to make your play experience at the table better. If you are going to worry about your play experience, that is part of the pre-talk to a game. Yes, acknowledging that a card hurts your feelings, but that should not spoil your entire evening with 1 in the 99.
Yeah, it just goes into something that I remember hearing from Jaden Animations. You are not responsible for anyone's happiness or well-being. Focus on yourself, and unless you are truly being an archenemy, an asshole to people, you are not responsible for their happiness.
And at the same time as well, this is a newer player who pulled an absolute bomb of a card out of a pack and just wanted to play it.
I know, I would want that.
Again, my biggest peeve and why I was so you are definitely asshole, as the more experienced player in my own shop and anyone else, in my opinion, as the experienced player, it is your job to help people learn, to grow, and advance around you. Do not stagnate people because you don't want to fight something.
It's also real gatekeepy to say, I'm going to spend a whole bunch of money on cards to beef up these decks, but your random pull I don't want because it counters one of mine. That's real bad.
Yeah, absolutely. And then another thing with this as well, and almost, kind of a PSA to the listeners as well. Mechanically speaking, a lot of these Praetors, even the original Vorinclex, have such a positive on the front side that a lot of people will play the positive, not even considering the negative implications of it. So some people might see the old Vorinclex where your lands are tapping for 2. It's just, hey, this is a really good way to ramp, and it'll slow my opponents down a little bit. Outside of whenever a Vorinclex usually hit the table, everyone usually bands together until that sucker's gone.
And then one of those players, if they can only use their lands, will have to eat their lands staying tapped for the entire time until 2 rotations of the table just to deal with the Vorinclex.
Yeah. And then the final bit against like why I think you are being archenemy. Part number 1. Your commander, sure, you don't get the counters, I get it. The text says when you proliferate, regardless of if the counters go there or not, the action draws you the cards. You playing proliferate, draw a card is still 2 cards even if you don't get the counters. You do not completely die. You still get to draw your cards, do your other Simic value things. You just don't get the counters.
But the argument that could be made against that is that that deck was actually very prominent on trying to get those counters on. So while the proliferate could have drawn you the card off just your commander, the rest of the deck could have actually mattered that counters went on regardless and been the value that it needed the counters even if it was just 1.
Totally agree. Drawing cards and removal, though.
All right, moving on to our next topic today on the show. This one, for Penny for Your Thought Vessels, was actually submitted by one of our listeners, Tyrand, aka Crimson Haze. Crimson Haze wants to know how many powerful cards are enough to increase the power level of a deck. So what we're looking at here is, let's just say we have a standard pre-constructed deck. You have a lot of what we call staples, which are cards that can kind of universally go in every deck because of their power level. How many of those are going to take to increase the power level of the deck from going from a pre-constructed deck to, say, we'll go to like an optimized level? So, upgraded pre-con, sure, but like getting it to that next level.
Yeah, and I can certainly see a argument for the types of cards that we're considering as staples. One that we all know and love, Rhystic Study, is an absolute staple that keeps going from casual commander tables to even CDH. That being said, 1, probably not going to do a lot. It gets a little wibbly when you keep increasing that number, though, because it's depending on synergies. It's depending on how those cards function within the deck.
If we were going from pre-con to optimized, I feel that my number is going to be a bit higher than everybody else's, because I'm going to say it's a factor-based game.
So with that, before we get into kind of dig a little bit deeper into this, I think the main thing we need to know is how generically somebody is going to make a deck better. And for this, we like to call it the 3 C's. So we have consistency, efficiency, and redundancy. Consistency being that I'm going to be able to do the thing every single time, no matter what. If it's a +1/+1 counter deck, most of my cards are going to go into that method. Efficiency, want to make sure we can get there as smooth as possible. Redundancy, no matter what, it's going to continue to happen.
None of those start with C. They only end with C, and I hate it.
Proud of you.
Well, somebody out there listening appreciates my pun, and that's all that matters.
Only a single somebody, though.
Shout out to that person.
You literally put in the 3 letter C.
I'm proud.
You did this to yourself.
Well, now that I know it bugs you, I'm just going to keep doing it.
Rude.
Anyways, so with that in mind, looking at cards for staples. So obviously adding a Rhystic Study to a deck, you're going to be able to increase the efficiency of the deck because you're going to draw more cards. You're going to be able to have redundancy if you were able to get to more of those pieces over and over again. And it can make the deck more consistent. However, only adding 1 card to the 99 without really a lot of ways to tutor it out may or may not be enough. I guess at some point, it really depends on what type of card we're adding to the deck.
Yeah, because like the thing that's really shoot up a power level of the deck, and these would be the thing to shoot up a power level, is we put in tutors. That's the one thing that is going to make it more powerful overall, depending on the number that you put in. 1 can still make it even more powerful because, oh, what's that? You now can just get multiple versions of the deck?
Yuck. I hate tutors.
So it really just becomes, if you have a card in your deck that's an absolute kill shot, home run hit, you just have a second one of those cards, or whatever you're needing in that moment, you're going to have access to it. So having, adding 1 tutor definitely an improvement because you're adding like the second best card of your deck, adding like 2 or 3. Then you have 4 of your best card in your deck effectively at that point.
And it's literally a 25% chance to draw it during the game if there's 4 of it. And then if you just keep going from there, it just keeps increasing and increasing and increasing until that percentage becomes much higher than a lot of people would anticipate. And then it just becomes CDH.
And I mean, when you're looking
Or at least very strong.
Yeah, when you're looking at a lot of the CEDH decks, kind of going to that too, a lot of it is going to be very quick mana, a lot of tutors, a lot of interaction, and having these hyper efficient curves where you can see what the power of a tutor can be for trying to find these specific combos and kind of going on these really narrow win conditions.
With all of that being said and done, though, something to keep in mind, dear viewer, you do not have to add tutors to make this happen. Again, for something like optimized, for going from a precon level or anything just a little higher, I build plenty of decks that have no tutors. They are not necessary to get you to that next level until you start hitting where you're like thinking about competitive or trying to really hammer out something you demand you must have.
At that point, it's instead of doing tutors, you go into the next level, which I think becomes right after tutors, and it's any kind of card draw engine. Those card draw engines can get you through your deck much faster than you think it will. And that's what's going to make a more powerful deck. Because if you are able to draw more cards, if you are able to see more of your deck than other people, that's going to be powerful. We've already talked about Ristic Study at the start, that being like one of the more powerful staples, just because it can draw you so many cards if it is not dealt with immediately, or in more casual circles, people don't pay for it.
Another thing to consider, just like with the idea of tutors, your own form of redundancy. There's more than one version of a Parallel Lives out there. There's more than one version of a number of these cards you're going to run. If you don't want to run tutors, you can run more of the redundancy of this same type of effect if you're in the right colors.
Yeah, and that's the main reason why the Command Zone had a great structure for building a deck, saying that you needed about 10, maybe even 15 removal spells in a deck to make it quote unquote consistent. The same thing with ramp, the same thing with card draw. Getting those consistent values in there will better your deck. It's why they do that every time that they break down a deck.
And it's unfortunate that the whole argument, like we were talking about earlier, just run more removal, it has its posts and wanes, but that's for another episode, I think.
Now, with this as well, I think a big part of adding the card at increasing the powerful level, a lot of people don't realize is what are you taking out? Because when you have a lot of these pre-constructed decks, and they're doing a lot better with it, mind you, but you used to have 3 different themes going on, and you kind of had to pick a lane, and you can upgrade it by taking out some of those weird strategies that aren't necessarily applicable and kind of going into that one particular lane. So if you're taking out a card that is on a side theme that you're not really doing, and you're putting in a tutor or a high-powered staple, I think it's going to do more for the deck than it would be if you're taking out if you're doing a rampant growth for a mana crypt.
Going to like midway there, going from like a rampant growth to like 3 visits. Instead of just getting a basic land, you're getting a forest.
Or a exploration for a Harrow or a Kodama's Reach, for example. Finding more than one land, it just happens to go to your hand, is kind of an upgrade in of itself, even though it's a bit more mana.
Yeah.
Sure.
We also can't forget just changing out the mana bases for a lot of those precons, because taking out a whole bunch of the come in tapped lands to just have lands that come in untapped and can probably even tap for more than one color. Guess what? They may not be the game changer of your upgrade, but having a true duel is still sometimes better than having a basic land.
And there's something to be said in colors that don't ramp, like mono blue, where you can just remove cards from your deck outright rather than try to tutor.
Yeah, and with that as well, I think, for me, I recently had to upgrade a pre-constructed deck for my future father-in-law because he's trying to learn how to play Magic. So I went ahead and bought him the First Flight. Also, whoever came up with that name to make a Magic the Gathering starting commander deck named First Flight, shout out, that was incredible. But for that deck, I didn't want to necessarily increase the a power level too much. I didn't want to increase the cost of the deck. I just wanted to take some cards that I had laying around the house and just put it in. So by just simply, I play tested it before and after just to kind of see what it would look like, and just taking out some of the tap lands and putting in some additional lands and moving the land count down from 39 to 37 and just adding some more ramp spells. It ran so much smoother, being able to get out your commander a lot earlier and then adding some additional you have no maximum hand size type of effects to be able to make sure that if people are swinging at you, you can keep that mana and keep that hand full. It was really helpful, and I didn't really add anything super busted, but I think there's something to be said about increasing the power level by just making your deck with the ratios a lot more efficient than what it normally is.
That's another factor to consider is precons. Certain ones will come with more lands, certain ones will come with a couple less lands than you'd think. That all plays into the numbers we might give you depending on the precon.
The other thing that might go into this is even when you put shiny new wheels onto a wooden cart, it's still a wooden cart. We do in fact also have to look at the commander you are running. Just because you do put in a whole bunch of tutors, that's what I did for the wedding ring deck, and that's not quote unquote powerful. It just made it more consistent on that regard, but it wasn't overall more powerful than a precon, and that ran a lot of tutors.
And I think one final thing we want to look at and address here is, hypothetically speaking, let's just say I get myself a Cyclonic Rift. I'm really excited to run into my deck. I have the Glorious Azorius Vehicles deck from Kamigawa, and I put it in the deck, and I deploy the Cyclonic Rift earlier in the game. I have no other cards modified in that deck. My opponents are going to generally think that my deck is stronger than it's going to be if I'm playing out staples, and they're going to react towards me like I'm a higher powered deck. So at some point, is your deck going to be able to handle the spoke? So in that situation, I would argue that putting in a Cyclonic Rift actually hurts your percentage of a chance to win because your opponents are going to treat you differently.
And the same would be said for another example that I had in real life, where you pick up the zombie precon and then you put Demonic Consultation and Thoracle, only those two cards into the deck hoping to get the combo. And then the only one time it happens, everyone's like, oh my gosh, Thoracle combo. And then it never happens again.
This sounds exactly like putting Vorinclex into the Dragon precon. This was a zombie precon. Why are you putting Thoracle combo in there?
Exactly. Powerful cards, even if they're a couple, does not inherently mean your deck's gonna be better.
Yes, though a deck could already come out the gate swinging like the Secret Lair of Coin Flip deck.
Oh, baby, I love that
thing,
deck.
That thing powers through real hard. But then, you know what I decided to do? I'd only changed out 3 cards. One of them was Mana Crypt. That thing went hard.
Rude.
At that point, too, that goes beyond adding a staple and also adds synergy because you're technically flipping coins, which is helping in addition. So it kind of works on both fronts.
Yeah, absolutely.
Your synergies are going to outlier your very generically great cards most times.
Yeah, if anything, we would recommend more synergies than staples.
I think the moral of the story here is if you're going to improve a deck, I think having increasing the synergy in the deck and making it more efficient and redundant is going to be going better for you, because I don't think the Ozolith is going to get you killed too often, but a Mana Crypt or a Rhystic Study might.
If you're going to worry about counters and you want to do the cool thing, you can run Ozolith over Vorinclex if you're really going to stress about it.
But moral of the story, let's go ahead and give our numbers here. Joe, how many staples do you think it takes to move up power level?
I believe it's going to be 10.
What are your thoughts here with that?
So my thoughts with that is that with Commander, it's 100 card singleton. If the cards that you're running can break down into basic numbers of that chart, then 10 cards in, 10 cards out should quote unquote shift it up. Now, I will put a caveat on that. It depends on the cards that you are taking in and taking out. If you are putting in just taking out 10 lands and putting in 10 lands that are just quote unquote better, that's not necessarily going to make your deck a tier higher. It may just do like half a tier and just be able to play things on playing a land instead of they all come in tap. But if you take out a whole bunch of like fluff pieces and then put in some of these staples, yeah, you're probably going to be looking like you're smoking.
I may or may not have stepped on his toe.
Definitely stomped on my fucking foot by accident.
Why would you stomp on his toe?
It's over here.
How could you do this to this poor boy?
I'm just a poor boy from a poor family.
He's just a poor boy, nobody loves him.
We have fun here.
From his head to his toes. Or lack thereof.
9
R.I.P. little piggy that went to market. All right. I think it is 7. I think 7 if you have very strong staples, or I'll give the caveat, if you're putting 3 to 4 tutors explicitly in your deck and just increasing that consistency of I can find that really good thing, so a significant percentage more of the time, I think that can also do it. But I think moving up the power level, I don't think it's quite at 10 in my opinion. I think it's more around like the 7 range.
I'm going to stick with 10.
Okay.
If you, with all 3 of these factors in mind, lean at least 2 out of the 3, and you remove up to 10 cards, with other replacements being things to keep the consistency, the redundancy, and everything else, factoring in that it might be some lands, it might be some creatures that are just a better version of that creature, 10 will get you there for sure, from pre-con to something that might be optimized.
Well, we're going to go ahead and get into our draft today, and we are talking about scary commanders because we are coming off of spooky season, or if you, like me, have a crazy family, entering spooky season with Thanksgiving coming along the way. We are going to be talking about the scariest commanders. These are going to be the commanders that, oh, I really don't want to see that. When I'm setting up for a commander and I see that on the field, I'm a little afraid of that person regardless of what they are playing. We're going to be doing 5 rounds this week. We're going to start out, Joe, you're going to be starting us off. Jacoby, you're going second. I'm going third and fourth, doing a snake draft, going back and forth until we each have 5 of the scariest commanders in all of EDH. Joe, go ahead and start us off.
So my first pick is one that has scarred me from our resident Spike player, Brago King Eternal.
I'm honored.
Proud of you.
Brago King Eternal is a 2/4 for 2 white-blue legendary creature spirit noble. It has flying, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, exile any number of target non-land permanents you control, then return those cards to the battlefield under their owner's control. Someone could say, oh, it's just a small value deck. I've been scarred and burned before. I've had my lands removed from a flicker effect. I am so traumatized.
So, for a little bit more context, Brago is my boy. I originally built the deck because we were doing a $25 budget EDH challenge. I built Brago King Eternal because I thought it'd be fun to do some flicker effects, but the problem was I ran out of budget before I could add a win condition. So, the win condition was Brago commander damage 1 turn at a time. And we had about 20 to 25 removal spells in there that were repeatable, and it was mostly just keeping the board nice and clean to keep doing the thing.
This is why Yorion got banned in Modern.
And also, 80 was the new 60, baby.
I hate it. I hate it with a passion.
I'm honored that I got Brago to 101. That is amazing.
Proud of you.
I can die happy. We're also going to play a game today. How many of these picks in the top 15 here did Senator Spike actually build a deck of at one point in time? And so far, I am 1 for 1. Jacoby, you're up.
I could make you 2 for 2, but we'll wait for later. Mine is Kozilek, the Great Distortion.
Ooh.
He is 8 and 2 actual colorless for a 12/12. When you cast this spell, if you have fewer than 7 cards in your hand, draw cards equal to the difference. It has Menace. Discard a card with mana value X. Counter target spell with that mana value. Now, part of how I feel about this, I did see a very wonderful rendition of the deck win at game nights. I built this deck and I got so much hate and flack for it. I fought this deck. I understood every ounce of flack and hate. Nothing brings me more dissatisfaction than going, oh, every spell in my hand is a generic counter spell. Also, it's also creatures. Also, they all have tendrils. 3 of them totally have Annihilator 4. No, I'm not sorry. Counter that spell. I'm going to blow up all your things. I'm going to eat all your stuff. Also counter your spell. And it's not even with a counter spell. It's just, no, you can't have it because they're the same amount.
Even then, while we are doing commanders that are scary across the table in a more casual setting, so we're not really choosing any prominent CEDH commanders, that deck does have a CDH list.
But the worst part about it is, if it resolves, your attempts to remove it later could just be outright completely foiled, and they don't have to have a single counterspell in the entire list to tell you no.
Soiled and foiled again.
And with that as well, just a minor inclusion with that is it is a 12/12, so it only takes 2 hits to be flat out dead from commander damage or double strike.
Sure does have menace.
It's powerful. Definitely can understand because that is usually seen in the 99 and not as the commander.
All right, so I am up. I am at the turn of round 1 and 2 here. I'm going to start out with one of the precons that was from the Typo era, which was the 2017, as I recall. It is the Ur-Dragon. Ur-Dragon has the Eminence ability that as long as Ur-Dragon is in the command zone and or on the battlefield, dragon spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. This specifically says other. It is a flying 10/10 for 4 white, blue, black, red, and green. Whenever one or more dragons you control attack, draw that many cards, and you may put a permanent card from your hand onto the battlefield. Every time you see this deck, because of all the dragon support that's out there, and it consistently gets printed, so every set that comes out, it just gets better and better, and more efficient and faster. It's one of those, it looks like it's starting out slow because it's going to take the first few turns to just kind of ramp things out, and you feel really bad for hard targeting that person and trying to get them down below 20. But if you leave them alone by like turn 6 or 7 when the Ur Dragon's starting to come out, it's just going to be too late for you.
Just also generally being in all colors, that deck has been taken in other ways other than Dragon Tribal and has still been consistently strong.
This is like the only deck I see Levi sit at the table. He looks across, sees that commander, and goes, "Oh no, not this again."
And even with that as well,
More agitated.
these are big flying creatures too. So you can't just simply block with soldier tokens. You have to have flyers to handle it. Like, it is a lot harder to do. Like, we had people in our meta that were playing consistently the dragons. So I ran cards like Crux of Fate that just said destroy all dragons consistently in my decks that ran black, just attack against it. Like, it's one of those that you have to respect that commander player or you are going down.
This is, if I'm not mistaken, this card, this commander in and of itself devised Levi's test for decks, which is the Ur-Dragon test.
It's one of those that if it can stand up to Ur-Dragon, then you have a chance of it actually being good. Moving on to the next one of the more broken cards in recent history, we are going to go with Urza, and more specifically, Mono Blue Urza.
Let me just remove that right there.
Urza, Lord High Artificer, 4 blue blue. When Urza, Lord High Artificer, enters the battlefield, create a 0/0 colors contract artifact creature. With this creature gets +1/+1 for each artifact you control. Fun fact, really fun to play in Brago. And then you can tap an untapped artifact you control to add blue mana. And you can also pay 5 because it needed more effects. Shuffle your library, then exile the top card. Until your end of turn, you may play that card and without paying its mana cost. This deck has an excessive amount of combos, an excessive amount of ramp. Every little artifact you play. Treasures are repeatable. Food token can be tapped for mana. If you're doing it even as like a Voltron equipment commander, all those are tapped for mana to go find more things. And then, the combo abilities are endless. And not to mention, cards like Winter Orb and Satacorp, you can tap them and shut them off for you and keep them going for everyone else.
It was famously said when they went into the Modern Horizons game nights, Josh couldn't make this weak enough. It was just way too strong all on its own, just incidentally. There was no way he could make it weak enough because that was his original choice for that game night.
If I'm not mistaken, he tried to make it solid just equipment. Like, he was going to just play nothing but equipment and just put him on Urza. But the fact that you could tap them while he's on Urza and do all the other stuff, he just literally could not do it. There was no way.
So it is a busted card. And by the way, it's also 1/4, so it can technically take some blocks too. But yeah, it is definitely my round 2, right behind the Ur-Dragon. Jacoby, you are on the clock.
On a side note, was not on my list.
I will also do a side note just above all of this. It being 4 toughness means that it passes the lightning bolt test. That's actually one of the prominent ways of how they want creatures to be, is if it can die to a lightning bolt. If it has a really strong effect, you will likely see it like 3 toughness or below. If it has a middling effect and they don't want it to die immediately, they give it 4 toughness. Look at Cody. Look at Urza. Urza, they miscounted on that last ability, though.
Yeah, so I guess into the round 2, this one doesn't necessarily rub me the wrong way, but it is one of those commanders that if you see it heading the deck, you go, hold up a minute. Wait a second. What are we doing here? Toxriel the Corrosive. Legendary slug horror, a 7/7 for 7 that is 5 and 2 black. The beginning of each end step, put a slime counter on each creature you don't control. They get -1/-1 for each slime counter on them. And then whenever a creature you don't control dies with a slime counter on it, make a 1/1 black slug creature token, and then you can pay 1 and a blue to sack a slug and draw a card. Oh boy. No, you thought you hated Elish Norn. You thought you wanted to have your creatures. You thought you wanted to have your lands. No, not a chance.
What do you mean by thought you'd have your lands?
Corma spell.
What does that do?
It says, so fun fact, you're in black. You don't even have to be, but you are. Urborg is your best friend, right?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Makes all your lands swamps.
Yeah.
This nice little 4-drop artifact, if you do not counter, it says all swamps are 1/1 creatures.
I don't like where this is going.
Uh-huh.
Pineapple.
Corma spell pass. Please lose all your lands.
Pineapple.
Also, thanks for all the slugs.
Oh.
And the worst part is, in the zone, go ahead. Swords my slug. It will come back.
You know the commander's powerful when it invokes a Kevin Hart reference.
Absolutely. No, like even when it's not the commander, it is a scary card to see come down because you have to deal with it right then and there, or else literally nothing is staying alive on anybody's boards, and that board just keeps getting larger and larger and larger.
And the biggest thing, right, even without Corma spell, even without removing all of your lands, which is, it's satisfying to watch. I hate it. I don't keep it away from me. But even then, if you play a 3/3, by the time it gets back to you, your 3/3 is dead. Your power 4 creature, probably dead too. So nothing under a 5/5 is going to make your rotation. Not a chance. It's not going to happen. And it's fueling creatures that can also be draw power into your opponent who's just sitting there passively collecting all of these dubs.
The fact that it is every end step is the biggest issue that makes that card so much more scary. If it was at just the single end step, yeah, that's a certain wipe for just the 1/1 creatures. But that's every end step, and you can never play the game at that point.
It's one of those cards. It is the same CMC, but in my opinion, way stronger than Elish Norn.
All right, so Kozilek the Great Distortion and Toxriel the Corrosive. Joe's back on the clock. He, of course, went with #1 overall, Brago, King Eternal.
Now I'm going to go with one that both of you played against me, and that kind of also traumatized me a bit because, oh boy, was it a lot of Mirims turn 5. The next
Taking
choice
that
is
off my
Mirim Sentinel Worm. It's a 6/6 3 green, blue, red legendary creature dragon spirit with flying in Ward 2. Whenever another non-token dragon enters the battlefield under your control, create a token that's a copy of it, except the token isn't legendary if that dragon is legendary. The fact that you can just get incidental value like we were talking with Dragon and the dragon support, but then double up on the effect just by it entering the battlefield, i.e. just flicker things, is real powerful. But these two took it one step further and used my own tech against me to clone it.
Doesn't feel so good, does it?
No, in certain cases, I would be, in fact, very proud. That also, the deck that I brought out for that game was not a good fit for that game. Oh, boy.
And the beauty of it is when you start making clones of the Mirim, the first one comes in, the legendary dies, and then the token clone remains. So the second one you cast is off the non-legendary. So you get 2 extra, and then 5 extra, and then everybody's already dead.
Unless, and this is very important, you made it one of the legendary rules don't matter to you. And then you just keep keeping them and keeping them and keeping them.
Doubling season is your best friend.
All right, Mirim Sentinel Worm off of the board. We're on the start of round 3. Joe, you are still on the clock.
So, this one may seem like an unconventional choice, but if I see it, that means you're probably up to something. I'm going to choose Zetalpa, Primal Dawn.
Go on.
Interesting.
So Zatalpa is the white mainstay of every precon, a 4/8 for 6/2 white legendary creature elder dinosaur with flying, double strike, vigilance, trample, and indestructible. If you're running this as your commander, you are not to be trusted. That means you didn't actually care which white commander was in your command zone because you went with Zatalpa.
And we also like the memes for Zatalpa. It has been around forever. So if you haven't heard it before, it is the 8-drop 1-800 Are You Flappin'? Legendary creature, Elder Dinosaur. Flappin', double slappin', no nappin', scrappin', unflappable. 69 flyer. The sky goes scraw, and the earth goes holy shit.
Yes, correct. If you are running this as your commander, that means that your strategy does not care about that commander, or you built a deck so hard into that commander that everybody is going to die at that table.
If I get smoked by a mono white dinosaur, that's an 8-drop. At that point, I'm accepting my fate.
Yeah, but that's the whole point. Unless they are like full memeing it up, no, that is a red flag. They are trying to promote, oh, I'm just doing a meme deck. No, you're not. No, you're not. You're doing combo. You put Heliod and Walking Ballista in there, and I know you did.
All right, moving on to the middle of round 3. Jacoby, you are on the clock.
All right, everyone else has done one that really chaps their calves here. I'm going to give you one that chaps me in a way that makes me absurdly angry. Anyone who knows me knows I hate elves. I hate elves so much, I literally want to set people's decks on fire.
Hey, Jacob,
I hate Lathril, Blade of the Elves.
this is the ones that scare you.
Yeah, it terrifies me. You know why it terrifies me? Because it doesn't stop multiplying. It doesn't stop. It's got menace. It just makes dudes. It's a 4-drop, 2/3. Every time it hits a player, it makes that many, it creates that many 1/1 elves. Doesn't sound that bad. It's only 2 elves, you say. Oh, you tap it, you tap 10 untapped elves. Everyone's losing life and you're gaining life. It bothers me so much. It terrifies me because elves cannot stop multiplying.
Basically, you could just start your turn and oops, there's already 5 more elves.
It just doesn't, it never stops. They just keep, oh, turn 1, elf. Turn 2, elf, elf. Turn 3, elf, 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 elf. Turn 4, Lathril. Turn 5, boop. Oh, I buffed it because all my elves give every elf every amount of power and toughness you want. Oops, guess I get 15 more elves.
Oh, come on. That's not realistic. Lathril absolutely comes out before turn 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially if you do the patented Jeweled Lotus.
Or, you got, if only there was a bunch of one mana ramp spells that you could run in elves. Oh, wait, that's like half of them.
It's like all of them. And then the other, and then they keep, and just like dragons, they can't stop printing support for it. Like they just won't stop. They just printed not that long ago an elf with multi-kicker that just gives you more elves. And they say, oh, every elf gets 1/1. Because why not? Just free stats for everybody.
I blame Orlando Bloom.
I actually just blame that people are horny for elves. Yeah, no, literally. Outside of Magic, everybody is going for elves. They're like one of the first races in any kind of fantasy setting.
Not a chance you would catch me with an orc before you catch me anywhere near an elf. I would rather rip their eyes out.
Bold strategy, Con. Let's see if it pays off for him. Anyways, I am on the clock here. At the back end of round 3, I started out with Urza and the Ur-Dragon on my 1/2 turn. I am looking here. I need some consistency in my life. I need some strength. I need another dragon. I am going with Corvold, the Fey-Cursed King.
Let me just, there we go.
Corvold, the Fey-Cursed King. It is a flying 4/4 dragon noble for 2, a black, a red, and a green. When Corvold, Fey-Cursed King enters the battlefield or attacks, sacrifice another permanent. Yeah, it's a trade-off, except of all the the tokens that are around that you can simply sacrifice. And the important part, when you sacrifice a permanent, put a +1/+1 counter on Corvold and draw a card. So every time you sacrifice a permanent, like, I don't know, treasure tokens, that creature is going to get bigger and bigger, and you're going to continue to draw cards. And then it's going to be an unstoppable card advantage machine, and you're also going to have a very lethal dragon threat at that point. And of course, on the origination of the spell, I don't think they were factoring in treasure tokens as much as prominent as they are today, but that is a deck that is going to do a lot. It is going to take up a lot of your time, and it is going to inevitably kill you after taking a 45-minute turn.
Hey, look, it's a deck that Jacob made.
Listen, you hate elves. Sorry, you hate dragons as much as I hate elves. Okay, I understand it. We vibing. It's fine. Kill them all.
All right. And in the realm of Eldraine, I'm going back to the well with which was originally intended as an adventure commander, but everyone decided, hey, it's better if you do literally anything else. And that is one of my personal favorite decks, but also terrifying nonetheless, Chulane, Teller of Tales.
For the first time in this entire list, let me tick that off right there real quick.
So Chulane, Teller of Tales, for those of you that don't know, is a legendary human druid, 2 green, white, blue. So Glorious Azorius plus green, or as everyone else calls it, Bant. It is a 2/4 vigilant, which is semi-relevant. Whenever you cast a creature spell, draw a card. Then you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. You can also pay 3 mana to tap it, return target creature you control to its owner's hand. I personally use it as a flicker commander because it allows me to continue to ramp and card draw and keep the engine going. And then I can also return some more desirable effects back to my hand to recast to get that ability again. It is devastatingly powerful. When it was first spoiled, I thought somebody had done a custom card, and I was like, oh, that's super broken. I can't believe someone thought that'd be a good idea, until I found out it was real. And as terrifying as it is, still very powerful. It's definitely a CDH caliber deck. There are lists out there for that. You can do with Food Chain, but there's really no way to build it bad. It is just a very strong, very powerful commander that if you don't address, it's going to take you out.
The value on Chulane is real, and it was just right up there with Corvold as far as mistakes that they did in creation.
It's not even value. It's literally wow you. It's one of those, like, it drops on the table and everyone, instead of going, oh man, the value, they go, wow, you going to really do this to me? Come on, man. I thought you liked me. I thought we were friends.
The fact that it is both card draw and ramp by just first draw that card. Oh, is that a land in your hand? Just plop that bad boy right down. Oh, you got some more 1-drop creatures that you want to just power out and get to where you need to go? Man, that's crazy. Just keep doing it. And that can lead to so many long turns.
And what gets me really flustered is it's not even cast. It's just ETB. Oh, you entered? Doesn't matter where from. You entered? Get this stuff. Just here. Take it. My lord, please. These cards. This land. It's yours.
All right. So that was my start of round 4 here. So I've taken the Dragon, Urza, Corvold, and Chulane. One quick note here, just so we know, Jacoby did not have the card in front of him. Chulane's ability is on casting of creature spell.
Whoopsie.
All
Still
right.
hate it.
Jacoby, though, you are on the clock in the middle of round 4 here. You have taken Kozilek, Toxrill, and Lathril.
I'm going to go ahead and tick this off both your lists, unless you are both crazy, and go with Joda the Unifier.
I was hoping he'd get back to me. I am salty right now.
You can be salty.
I was thinking I had a chance.
Not in hell.
Not there.
Wow, shocking. So Joda the Unifier is a white, a blue, black, red, and a green for a 5/5 human wizard.
That's not so bad.
Yeah, Legendary creatures you control get +X+X, where X is the number of legendary creatures you control. Oh, still okay. Man, whatever, it's just a steroid, no trample. Whenever you cast a legendary spell, just spell in general, from your hand, you cascade into another legendary non-land card with lesser mana value. Why do you do this? You can, it's the same problem with Chulane. You could build it with practically anything. If it says the word legendary on the card and it's a permanent that's not a land, congratulations. You get to enjoy the value. And it doesn't matter what it is. It could be a 0-drop. That's like, oh, it's got some keywords. It's a 0/1. Little sticky goblin kobold boy. Oh, what's that? He suddenly has +10/+10 with all those keywords? Oh, because Joda exists? Nice. Cool. Fun. Valuable. Yeah. Ugh.
No, you could build this thing with the Stranger Thing kids and My Little Pony and still smash.
Just the generic buff that they added on to Joda pushed that card through the roof. If it didn't have that, I don't think it is quote unquote as powerful as it currently is.
And just it doesn't exclude itself. Why do you not just say you're a 6/6 and say other creatures if you're really going to be like that?
I did also think when I first saw it that it was a custom card that was OP.
There were just some cards that went through R&D. They tested out the cards, or given what I have heard or known about R&D, they tried to test it as best they could and thought, it doesn't seem as bad, push it out, and then this happens.
It's my problem is the same issue with Tulane as far as Value Town. You cast any drop at all. A 5 gets anything 4 or less. It's hard to be a bad legendary at 4 or less. Like, there aren't that many bad legendary creatures that you're going to make in a deck. It's just, ugh.
All right, Joda off the board. Much to my dismay, I really thought I had a chance to get him, but that's okay. Joe, you're on the clock. You've taken Brago, Miram, and Zatalpa.
Yeah, I've been checking off mine as well as I say them, just so that I don't repeat them. But the next one, near and dear to my heart as a jank combo piece, Asuka, God of the Tree, or as we all probably better know her better, the Prismatic Bridge. People have built Prismatic Bridge decks, not how I have and done like the one creature. It's usually either planeswalkers or they're trying to cheat out big creatures that should not be cheated out normally. And it's very important that a lot of those creatures and planeswalkers coming out, some people are just like, just counter it. No, that's not how that works. They just enter. You try to counter? Nope, it's already there. Damage is already going to be done. That could be an Elish Norn. Sorry, did that coming out that you couldn't counter just destroy everybody's ward but mine? Man, that's crazy.
Or it could be a situation that it just keeps consistently bringing out stacks pieces every single turn, or Praetors, or whatever you're wanting to do.
Why did you say stacks pieces like I didn't just build a CDH Prismatic Bridge stacks deck?
Oh, must be fresh in my mind. I don't know why that would be.
Oh,
Couldn't be Joe. Nope.
not at all. I hate the stacks.
All right, turning down here, we are beginning round 5. Joe, you are still on the clock.
The next one I think is a nice little blast from the past that anyone would still balk at if it came up to them. Muldrotha, the Gravetide. Muldrotha. Actually, you know what? I never actually said the stats for Asuka. Let me just
That's how you know he never plays the creature side. It didn't even occur to him.
Well, I mean,
You're going to have a fun time editing this.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Asuka herself is a 1/4 for 1 and 2 green, legendary creature god, has vigilance, tap, add 1 mana of any color. Other legendary creatures you control have vigilance, and tap, add 1 mana of any color. This seems all well and good on the front side. That seems like a pretty strong card. You get to have like legendary creature vigilance. They all tap for mana. It just keeps going. But that's not the card that most people play. It's the Prismatic Bridge, which is white, blue, black, red, green for a legendary enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature or planeswalker card. Put that card onto the battlefield and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Value Town. Value Town.
Absolutely. All right, back on Muldrotha. Why did you select that in the 5th round?
So Muldrotha, that's the one where these people are going to say, oh, it's not that strong of a Muldrotha deck, and then keep repeatedly casting a Mystic Remora from their graveyard.
As a Muldrotha
I may
player
have done
myself in the past, I have never made that solemn vow ever in my life.
Really?
Never once. I have never once said, oh, it's fine. It's just Muldrotha. No. Nuh-uh. Give me my stuff back. I want it back.
Muldrotha
is a 6/6 for 3 green, black, blue. Legendary creature Elemental Avatar. During each of your turns, you may play a land and cast a permanent spell of each permanent type from your graveyard. Man, did you know that got better with battles?
Proud of you.
You can now cast those battles from your graveyard.
That's fair. Yeah, especially when you get the use out of them. Absolutely.
For the most part, a lot of these, the ones that I've come in contact with, have primarily been self-mill decks to just get the value of Muldrotha from the command zone to just continue milling themselves and then immediately casting so many different wind spells from their graveyard.
Sure, why wouldn't you?
Because this one is a nice little self-contained Thoracle deck by itself. What's that? I'm just gonna keep milling myself until I have Thassa's Oracle in the graveyard, and then, oh, what's that? My library's empty? Crazy Thoracle.
Give me that Oracle, baby.
Yeah, Thoracle is a prominently CEDH card, but if you see that in casual, you would likely see it in Muldrotha.
And on top of that, there are so many irritating enchantments and creatures everyone hates. Oh, my little spore frog, my little froggy boy.
Yeah, Spore Frog loops always are just a pain to deal with, and Muldrotha makes sure that it does not go away.
No combat damage.
Moving on to the middle of the 5th round here. Jacoby, you are up. You have taken Kozilek, Toxrill, Lathril, and Joe to the Unifier.
Levi, I'm looking right into your soul when I say this.
He is, in fact, looking directly into Levi's soul.
I got a feeling I'm about to check off another one
You
of
sure as heck
things on
are.
my list that been played by me.
Oh, yeah. Sisay, Weatherlight Captain,
Oh, you
needs to burn in hell. 100. I hate it more than I hate any other card. Listen to me, okay? Stop paying mana and getting things from your deck that no one can counter.
But
Stop
I
it.
like getting
No,
things.
stop it. You don't need. Okay, so
Look,
Sisay.
stop. Get some help.
What's
No,
tell-
he doesn't. No, stop. He doesn't need help. He's already got it. Sisay already helps him.
So
Yes,
what does this
we
say
need-
do?
Sisay is 2 and a white for a 2/2. Oh, it seems harmless. A human soldier. Yeah, no. Sisay, Weatherlight Captain, gets +1/+1 for each color among other legendary permanents you control. Again, yeah, whatever. It's not as good as Joda. Pay white, blue, black, red, green. Search your library for a legendary permanent with converted mana cost less than her power. Put it into play. Shuffle your library. I cannot stand this effect. I could not care less about majority of effects in all of Magic. Anything that says just do the thing and it's on demand whenever you want. You cannot counter it. You only have to disallow it. You have to stop the ability. You can't do anything about the spell, the card. It could be a land. It could be whatever you want. You just get it basically for free.
It's funny that you keep saying Sisay because I just keep thinking Buttercup. She, by the time we are recording this, she has been confirmed as a secret lair for the Princess Bride.
I am so excited for that because I do have a Sisay Weatherlight Captain deck that is
Yeah,
more
it's-
than likely going to be Buttercup because I can then name the deck Suck It Up Buttercup.
Hey,
And that is beautiful.
hey, you don't have to deal with it anymore because that's a CDH deck now.
Oh yeah,
It can't hurt you.
Yeah, I bet.
Unless he plays CDH. Like, what are you talking about?
This is one of the only decks Levi has ever played where I built we had a bunch of CEDH games where I was trying to limit test a deck. And Levi whips out his Sisay deck. I'm like, yes, we should play against this. Because as I tell everyone else who listens here, experience things even if you hate them. Like, you need to experience them so you understand why you don't like them, what you can do about them. And yes, there are answers to what you can do with Sisay. Oh, I hate it so much.
Plus, just the tutor and get onto the field. Any legendary can be very strong, even if you are building with a weaker mentality in mind. Sisay backgrounds has become a thing because of that. For the most part, a lot of people can incidentally even buff her power even more by just searching for some of these legendary cards because some of them just have tacked on, oh, hey, creature get bigger as just an effect, and then her own effect gets bigger because of the color of that card.
Yeah, Sisay background, Sisay shrines, Sisay humans, Sisay legendary good stuff, Sisay planeswalkers. These are all really, really good decks.
And the part that gets me the most, what really grinds my gears, is the ability to just activate Sisay Sisay, and if they choose to hold up enough mana, they pick out their win con, and there is nothing you can do about it. You cannot interact with it, period. Your counter spells mean nothing. Your removal means nothing if it's the correct stuff. That Swords of Plowshares you were holding in case he pulled the one specific type of win con you were thinking of, irrelevant, because, oh look, they grabbed the Amanatu line, and all of your non-planeswalker removal that is just sitting in your hand, worthless. The 3 counter spells in your hand do nothing, and you just have to deal with it.
In that defense, you could just sword Sisay.
No, because they just keep activating Sisay, and then on their turn, do the Amanatu line, because they don't need Sisay present.
That means you need to do it before they have the activation mana.
Yeah, I mean, it's, any commander's removable, but even then, like, it's really good in CDH because a lot of the stacks pieces, depending on what they're putting out, you can find a line that can avoid a lot of the issues. The activations don't care about countering abilities. You can flash in things to make it so people can't cast spells on your turn, or you can, bounce this, say, give it hexproof. It is a really hard deck to deal with.
And the other thing is if they have the open mana for this can just happen immediately. The Sisay ability is not a tap ability. Most other types of legendary creatures that focus in this kind of strat have a tap cost. They have something that indicates, like, if you don't have haste, whatever, this is just, oh, it exists, do it now.
Yeah, because I know that the OG Sisay, that's just green-white, that one is tapped to search for those legendary cards.
Yeah, and I mean, granted, that particular deck has taken on more of a stacks build with Captain Sisay, but back when Paradox Engine was a thing, that deck was great as well, because you could just cast anything that you got and just untap Sisay and go do it again and again and again.
Paradox Engine fucking deserved it.
Paradox Engine had it coming, but that deck was fun, and I absolutely enjoyed it. Looking here, I am at my last pick. I've taken the Ur Dragon, I've taken Urza, I've taken Corvul, I've taken Tulane. I'm taking a card and a commander that is only being played sheerly out of spite, and that is Baral, Chief of Compliance.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it hurts.
I was hoping that he'd make it back to me, and he was my sleeper, and he is here. He is a 1 and a blue, super cheap. Instants and sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Whenever a spell or ability you control counters the spell, you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card. This deck is incentivizing you to counter everything. If it resolves, you have failed as a Baral player, and you're going to consistently churn through your deck to find more of those, and you're going to find ways to double up the draw, so you're drawing 2, discarding 1, and you're going to, put Talrand in the deck to make drakes and swing in and have win conditions that are protected by your infinity counter spells.
Talrand's in that same strain because most people build Talrand as just counterspell tribal.
This is one of those commanders, what it's doing is not as scary as the mentality of what it's doing. The concept of I'm going to always have the counterspells is more terrifying than the possibility of they might only have like this number in the deck or whatever.
Yeah, this is usually brought out, like, very rarely do I see someone bring this out on like game 1 of the night. This is more of the, hey, I got knocked out on turn 5 and I'm mad, but I don't want to communicate that, so I'm going to play this instead and counter everything under the sun. So this is definitely the spite play of spite plays, and it is, if you're playing in this deck, you either need to have something that says your spells can't be countered or you're going to have a bad time.
Yeah, no, just full stop. That is why it got banned in 1v1 Brawl. When Brawl was still 1v1 format and they were trying to do singleton in standard, Baral got full banned in that small format.
Cute of you to assume your uncounterable spells are going to make it to the board if that thing gets countered.
Yeah, so it's definitely my last one here. The counterspell typal is really hard to deal with. And then that concludes our draft. So, Joe, you had Brago, Miram, Zatalpa, Prismatic Bridge, and Muldrotha. Jacoby had Kozilek, Toxrill, Lathril, Blade of Elves, and Joda, and then Sisay, Weatherlight Captain. I had Dragon, Urza, Lord, had Artificer, Corvul, Tulane, and Baral, Chief of Compliance.
Any runner-ups?
That's what I would like to know.
Let me see here on my...
So I'll go ahead and start out with one of mine that had a runner-up. If we're talking of just scary commanders that I don't want to see, Uriel the Miststalker, aka Bigfoot.
Wow, it's crazy that you built that deck.
And we'll go over the stats of how many of these decks I've actually built. But having this 5-drop, so 2 and Naya colors or green, white, red. It's a hexproof creature that gets +2/+2 for each aura on it. It's going to be the absolute beast of the game. If it has protection from creatures, any kind of trample, you can die at any moment. It is not necessarily a combo deck, but there are lines you can play. But it is definitely a boogeyman that you have to look out for if you see it in the command zone. Jacoby, how about an honorable mention?
Honorable mention. Oh, it's really hard between these last two I have here. I'm going to go with Xyrus, the Writhing Storm.
Okay.
So 2, a green, a blue, and a red for a 3/5 Snake Leviathan with flying. When an opponent draws a card, except for the first card they would draw each turn on their draw steps, make a 1/1 green snake. And when it deals damage to a player, you and that player each draw that many cards. It's one of those like snowball effects you kind of don't see going. It's like, oh, it's fine. It's just a 3/5 snake. We're going to get some cards together. You know, he's going to give me ammo against him until he goes, okay, Windfall, I now have a bajillion snakes. Oh yeah, by the way, these snakes, they now have flying. Snakes on a plane. Whoa, you're just covered in them.
Mine can actually be interchangeable between two of them because it's the concept behind them being played that's the issue.
Okay.
The two that I was thinking of was either Kiki Jiki the Mirror Breaker or Elish Norn. If you're putting that into your command zone, you're pretty confident in your deck because those usually are in the 99 because they're going to buff up the rest of your strategy. If that is your strategy and you put it into the command zone, that's a red flag. That means you are absolutely telegraphing what you are trying to do.
Either one of those, I'm going to be very terrified to see, especially the Kiki Jiki having that haste. So when it comes out, it's probably already too late for you.
If you are putting those pieces into the command zone, you are already trying to bring some kind of smoke because those are already going to be pieces that you would much rather have combo in the 99.
Reminds me of something like Winota.
Winota's a good one too.
Yeah, you are spooky by existence because you do things without having to do with them yourself.
Now, with this as well, I'm going to ask the question, Jacoby. Of the 15 cards that we drafted for the Scariest Commanders, how much do you think me, a.k.a. Senator Spike, has built decks of?
Would you say the list one more time for me?
It is Brago, King Eternal, Kozilek, Ur-Dragon, Urza, Lord High Artificer, Toxrill, Miram, Zatalpa, Lathril, Corvold, Chulane, Joda the Unifier, Prismatic Bridge, Muldrotha the Gravetide, Sisay Wedlock Captain, and Brawl Chief of Compliance.
I'm going to go with 9.
And 9 on the dot. So I've made 9 of 15 of those.
It's almost like I know your decks.
And I had one of the honorable mentions as well, technically, if we were going with those.
Yes, and specifically that makes sense because of just your mentality of going into the games when we did the breakdown of being a Spike and how, man, your deck building is traumatizing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I definitely am of the philosophy that if I have one card that I'm guaranteed to have each game, I want to make sure it can bring some smoke. So I am very much under the impression that I'm going to get some attention with my card in my command zone. I don't want to play cute with it. I want to be strong, fast, and physical with the deck building. So I have no hesitation by playing these powerful commanders.
Now, I'm curious, how many of these do you think I built? Because there was more in here that I've built than you might have thought.
All right, let me see here. Okay, so thinking...
And go ahead, just so they have a refresher, give them the list one more time.
So the Brago, Kozilek, Ur-Dragon, Miram, Toxrill, Urza, Zatalpa, Lathril, Corvold, Prismatic Bridge, Joda, Chulane, Muldrotha, Sisay, and Brawl. I'm going to say you've built 7.
I think that's right.
There we go. All right.
And then just for funsies, how many have I built?
I know you built Prismatic Bridge. You may have built Muldrotha at some point in time. I could see you doing some...
Nope.
Never? Like not even a...
I have like mocked up a deck, but I have never actually built it to play against people.
I could see you've done something silly with Ur-Dragon in the past.
I have not even touched our dragon.
I'm going to go with 1.
2, maybe?
Yeah, I believe it is 1.
Okay, so Prismatic Bridge. Okay. I didn't know if there's one that I
Guess
didn't
what?
know about.
I don't build scary. Damn it.
Jeez.
Damn it. I hit the thing.
There's the thing there.
I don't build scary commanders. I build scary strategies. I'm the one that people then bring up. I don't trust Cody players. That's what I do. I bring in new commanders for people to be like, I don't like that.
Yeah, I was the guy who sat here and went, you know what would be really fun? Toxrill in the Zone.
All right, so that is all the time we have for this episode. Any final thoughts before we go?
Head empty, no thoughts.
Proud of you.
Play Magic, do thing, do combo.
Go Pack Go.
Go back forth into the primordial soup. Be the better Magic player.
If you have any topics that you would like to see us draft on the show or discuss, please send us an email at thoughtvesselshow@gmail.com, or you can reach out to us on Facebook or Twitter, also known as X. That is all we have for this week. Thank you for listening to the Thought Vessel Show, and you have a good one.
Stay perfect.
Tell us your favorite stories during those emails too.